Hello and welcome to Systemize Your Success. As always, I'm Dr. Steve Day, and today I am joined by Judy Weber. And Judy is a former trial lawyer and C-suite executive, and she's now a renowned Christian business coach and scaling strategist for women entrepreneurs. She's also the host of the Joyful Business podcast, and on there she inspires entrepreneurs to pursue miraculous results through faith-fueled thought modeling, which to me sounds absolutely fabulous. And I'm really excited to jump into this. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success. So, Judy, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And yeah, just tell me, how did you get from being a lawyer to doing what you do now?
Thank you so much, Steve. I am so honored to be here. I get this question every time. And it's so funny because the road that got me here is a very long and windy one. I am days shy as I sit here from my 59th birthday, and there's been a lot of living in those years. But the short story is little girl from humble beginnings, one of six. God put lots of big dreams in me, lots of ambition and drive. And there were two things I wanted to be as a little kid. Number one, a teacher. I played that more than with Barbies. I played teacher with the neighborhood kids. I, of course, was the teacher, right? And the other thing was a lawyer, but I didn't think people like me, poor people who had no connections. Daddy was a factory worker. Mom stayed home. I didn't think people like me could be lawyers. But let's fast forward, went to Villanova, which is a very good school, law school, got a great job as an associate in a big firm in Philadelphia area. But it wasn't fulfilling. And I had just gotten married and I got pregnant, and they hated that. They blackballed me. She's not on the partnership track, right? But anyway, I stayed in the practice of law. And then when I had my third son, I got out of the practice of law to stay home with my kids. But guess what happened, Steve? Within a month, I was like, okay, I love my children beyond anything, and they're such a blessing, but I feel like I got to do something else. So I launched my first business, and you're going to love this, as an interior decorator with zero formal experience. I just had a knack for it. I watched HGTV, and everybody walking in my house would say, "Oh, can you help me?" So I'm a strategic thinker. Lawyering got me to think that way. I always want to think strategically to win. And I got a booth at a local home show. I walked away that weekend with 14 appointments. I closed 10 of them. So anyway, now we're going to fast forward to now I am in in-house counsel, general counsel for a multi-million-dollar international company. I loved everybody that worked there except the boss. He was just it was a toxic relationship, him and me. So he embarrassed me for the last time in front of the board, and I cried on my way home and I said, "Baby, I think it's time." He said, "Time for what?" I said, "It's time for me to launch my coaching business." And so I did that back in 2017. And here we are today, where I see that my lawyering, the way I think, the way I make decisions, the way I strategize, that is my differentiator. Plus my 30 years of real world experience in the boardroom, in the courtroom. I did retail. I was a secretary before I went to law school. Like, I've done it all. So that's the shortest way I could tell you what got me here, Steve.
Fantastic. I think you told it very well. And yeah, I can imagine that could be a long story if you wanted it to be. So yeah, thank you for the short version. So fantastic. And I think what's remarkable about that is obviously the journey you've had. And it's interesting. I feel the same. Like my journey has been a long, winding path, and many entrepreneurs have. But we can also, with that sort of mindset, I think that you can do anything, and therefore you got the ability to do anything. Like, what brought you to do exactly what you do now? Yeah, you've got a very specific title. You're not just a business coach. You're not just a business coach for XYZ businesses. You're a business coach for women for a start, and not just women, for women with faith. And so there's quite a lot in there that's like really niching you down. And obviously good marketing say you should niche, but I'm sure there's a lot more behind it than that. So tell us a bit about why just women, why just people with faith? Like, what does that mean to you, and why is that important?
Wow, I so love this question Thank you for asking it. I love that you're asking me to go deep because I don't know anybody ever asked me that question. So I will tell you that I've been a lifelong women's advocate. My mother poured into me in such a way. I used to be, as I say, a feminazi, meaning I was the one out there saying, "Let's go, women." I was pro-abortion. I was doing all that kind of stuff, and then I accepted Jesus into my heart. That changed everything. Like I was raised in the faith, but I went through some stuff, especially going through my divorce, when I just discovered that Jesus was real. These stories in the Bible weren't just make believe or cute little stories. He is alive. Hallelujah. He changed me. Like I did a complete 180. But my mother, what's interesting about her, the influence she has had on my life is, as I said, she poured into me. She was the one saying, Jude, there's leaders and there's followers. Be a leader. God built you to be a leader. So I grew up hearing that. But what's interesting as I look back, Steve, is that my mother had a tough life. She was the oldest of, I forget, 6 or 9 kids. You might think it's crazy, but we weren't close to her family. She distanced herself from the family for this reason. Her dad was abusive. Her mother was negligent. All she did was sit around and eat all day. My mother was the one that raised her siblings, so she had a tough life there. And then she was raped at 10. The reason I'm telling you this is because despite her pouring from a very empty cup, she did not think much of herself. She really lived an underlived life. She somehow, by God's grace, poured into me. And so I feel very called to support other sisters and lift us up. So if you have women in your life, I know you can see what I mean by this. Women, we are so hard on ourselves. And so we see the best in everybody else and the worst in ourselves. And so that coupled with such a blessing that I was able to go to law school, little old me, and I saw the discrimination and how we had to fight and claw, but there's a way to do it that you rise above their ridiculosity. You know what I mean? And so that's the short order of how it all comes together where women, we just need, support that only a woman really gets. No offense or anything. I have 3 sons. They're beautiful sons. They love the Lord. They're very kind. But there's just something about a community of women who have dealt with similar issues. And then the layer of faith, I will tell you this. I'll take a breath then. Faith is the number one determiner of anybody's success. Now, for me, faith is in Christ. For others, it may be in something else, but I will tell you this. If you don't believe in yourself, in your, like, this is my calling, you're just not going to make it.
What a good answer. Thank you very much. I think that last sentence you said there really resonates with me because I grew up with faith. I would say I'm not a hugely faithful person at the moment with regards to Christ and God. And but it's irrelevant because of what you just said. It's about faith in something. It doesn't matter what religion you are, as far as I'm concerned. It's like that fact that if you don't believe in you, if you don't believe in the mission that you're on, and I did an incredible course last year actually with a guy's called Impact Accelerator. If anyone wants to check it out, a guy called Chet Majaria, and he was just focusing really on what's your mission, like what's your thing, like, and it's really really good. He's written a couple of books as well, and but that actually really made me refocus on why I do what I do,
Mm,
and actually to think about like what is this business thing all about? Because I used to be a doctor, and there's a huge amount of satisfaction in that job. And walking away from that and coming into business, I was worried I'd never find anything that gave me that satisfaction again. But actually, I have something that changes people's lives every day, and it sounds like you've done that tenfold. So yeah, fantastic story.
that's
Um,
amazing. Can I say something? What
of
kind of
course you
doctor
can.
are you? I'm sorry, I forget now.
Medical doctor,
Okay, what was your specialty?
accident and emergency.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I was a medical malpractice defense attorney, so I represented the good guys. And so I really respect your work. That's amazing. And on your point of what you just said, I always say success is the result of who you believe yourself to be, and that we don't get what we want, we get who we are. And that's where I think the mindset piece, I know I poo-pooed it. I'm like, mindset, give me the step by step so I can do. And that's the hardest part, I think, of my work as a coach, like telling my ladies, guess what? You can work, you can overwork. You gotta think right. That's what unlocks everything.
Yeah. It's a shame you work with just women because I think I could I need a dose of you and your magic to sometimes because I think that we all get massively down on ourselves and especially like I work from home. I like my entire business online, have no colleagues around me. And so it can get lonely.
Mm.
And that's a typical path for an entrepreneur is to basically do on your own. So I think that what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the power of community as well. I
Yeah.
do have a very small handful of one-on-one clients, but each of my other major containers, they are group with high touch one-on-one to me. And I think that's a beautiful combination just for what you said. We need to be surrounded by like-minded people thinking big, going for it all, and really the ability to commiserate and really
Yeah.
be real with each other because it's not all rainbows and unicorns at all,
No,
right?
no, and yeah, interesting you mentioned the community because that's been a big focus of me over the past 12 months. I just recently launched like a bespoke community app or platform for our clients, and it's been really successful. And it's not it was for me. I felt it was the thing that was missing. We had WhatsApp groups, we had a Facebook group, but people didn't really use them and in the way that I'd hoped and so they build in that community together alongside a lot of coaching but yeah that's been really a positive change and that's why all my focus that is what really has reignited my passion for what I'm doing is seeing wow if I can connect these entrepreneurs that are like me who are lonely and need support and need someone to cry on someone's shoulder to cry on that is actually a huge benefit on top of any other work you do but just providing that platform that space. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me jump into some a bit more specifics because I've been having obviously before you came on, having a look at what you do in your website and things. And there's something you talk about called the joyful scaling method. And this I love. And I have my own mission statement. And the final sentence of that is about part of it is about spreading joy. I think that's such a nice word. And it took me a long time to think what word am I going to use to depict or to describe what I really mean. And it came up with joy. So I'm interested in why did you call it joyful scaling method? What is it? And how can our listeners actually, what can they take away today to actually, put something to action to make positive effect?
Okay. I love this. Okay. Joy is what we're called to as Christ followers. Um, you know, the joy of the Lord is our strength. So joy, speaks to my brand where Christ is at the very center of it. And as I was thinking about it and talking to clients over the years, one thing they would say to me is, you know what, Jude, I lost the joy. And I said, what do you mean by that? They're like, you know what? This business, I know I'm called to it. I love it, but the whole running of it and this idea of scaling, like it sounds good, but it ain't working. And I've lost the joy. And I've been there myself. I'm not like, we're not all like constantly going up. So I just want everybody to hear that. But this joyful scaling method, it's only 3 scaling strategies that you need to scale from 6 or multi 6 to your first 500K and beyond. So I'm just going to say what they are and then I'll talk about each just very briefly. So the first is the breakthrough strategy. Second is the operations strategy. And third is your profit strategy. So briefly, the breakthrough strategy, this is when my clients come into my mastermind and I say, you know what, let's take a deep dive into your marketing. Let's see where those leads are coming in. Let's see what's working and what isn't working. And a lot of times they're like, I don't know why. I'm like, well, where's your data? Oh, I don't have data. Uh-oh. Okay. Well, let's start there. Right. But marketing we look into, and then I look at your sales process and your sales systems. A lot of times we're working too hard because we don't have systems in place. So marketing, sales, that's huge. And then I also look at your delivery. Why? Because your client results are critical, not just to make sure that you're confident that what you are doing actually works, but also for testimonials and social proof and things like that, so that the world can see that your system works. So that's the breakthrough strategy. Second is operations. Here we dive into team, SOPs, and automation. Team is ginormous. You will never get to a 500,000 without a team. Now that team doesn't have to be an army of people, but it has to be those who own their role. And the SOPs is that everybody knows how to do certain things so that if somebody's out sick, you could actually plug somebody else in and they can do exactly what the other person did. And then third, automation. So that's the operations. And then finally, profit strategy. This is when we look hard at the numbers and not just revenue and profit, but also client results. That's huge. Also in the profit strategy, the strategic planning, and I plan in a very unique way, and then strategic initiatives like referral programs or collabs or affiliates. So that's briefly my three-part joyful scaling method.
Okay. And what's one actionable step that someone could take away today based on that? Because I agree with everything you just said, of course. But what would you say would be the number one thing that somebody could go away to look at to go, okay, this is my first step towards having more joy in my business and
Okay.
scaling?
I love this question. Let's go to the operation strategy. Specifically, let's talk about team. Now, if anybody's listening and they're like, hey, Jude, I don't think I'm ready, maybe not. But I want to briefly take you through my dream team protocol so that you can look at the tasks you're currently doing and you get to decide, right? You get to decide. You get to strategize and say, should this really be on my plate or should it not? So on a piece of paper, draw two lines so that we have three columns, okay? The first column is CEO tasks. I want you to write down all of the things you're doing that you believe are CEO tasks, right? And what does that mean, Judy? Those high-level decisions. You're looking at your revenue, you're looking at your bank account, you are leading your team, you are working on client work, you are doing things like that, right? So everything that you're doing that is truly CEO level. The second column is things you're doing, but you're not good at it. You hate it. or maybe it's things on your plate that you like for me it used to be Canva. I love to play in Canva, but is that really a CEO level activity? At some point it is not, and we really need to pass it off. So again, the first, CEO. Middle, delegate. I hate it or I shouldn't be doing it. Then there's this third column of like, I guess that last one was actually should be on that last column where it's like, but I love it, like the Canva. Do I have to give it up? Well, you get to decide because you look at your calendar and determine, is this something? How much time am I spending a week doing it? Does it make sense to be on my plate? So that ultimately you're looking at this third column of I don't know, and you make a decision. I always say decide and go. You look at it and don't ruminate in it for like hours and weeks. Just look at it and say, am I going to keep it on my plate or not? Okay, here's the next part. Now with the middle column, now you know what tasks are or should be off your plate. Any role that's not currently on your team, I want you to look at that list and I want you to circle like tasks requiring a certain level of skill. So I want you to circle in a particular color, right? My admin stuff is blue. Oh, now this is more design. So that's a different skill set. And then, operations, maybe that's another skill set, because here's what I see. And then I'll take a breath. I see too many people assuming that an admin can just learn what I need to do. Please don't do that. You're going to either overpay for less quality of work or underpay and get exactly what you're paying for. So I always say hire based upon skill level needed. Don't just assume it's admin. Okay. So I can go deeper if you like, but
It's all good. It's all fun. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, what you're saying. I mean, this is totally up my street. So it's exactly how this kind of stuff that I often talk about on this podcast. So it's totally relevant. And but I love the way I always like when I speak to people like yourself. Like we have parts of our coaching will overlap, and this is one of the areas that definitely will or does. And but and I have something called the personal systemization plan. It doesn't matter, same kind of thing. But I take it and I have a quadrant that I use. I don't use three columns. And I actually really like a couple of things that you got from that you've used there. I think that the different way of looking at the same problem is always so enlightening, and that's why I love having people on the show who are similarly minded. Because I think we can learn so much from like people things you think I've nailed that, and you have one conversation or you listen to one podcast or whatever, and suddenly you're like, didn't think of it like that. So fantastic. Okay,
yeah.
cool. Tell me, other than having this three-part strategy or three areas of focus. Or let me word it like this. When you work with however many dozens or hundreds of entrepreneurs you've worked with, like what are the common obstacles that you've seen people come across, the barriers that they've hit? You know, they've got you as a fantastic coach. They're motivated, but yet still there's something holding them back or preventing them from progressing. Like, what are those key things that we need to look out for, and how do you help them overcome them?
Mm.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
The first thing really is mindset. It really is. And a lot of smart people, a lot of well-educated people, maybe you, I know it was me, like I mentioned earlier, I don't need to think about what I'm thinking about. Thank you very much. What I need to think about is strategy. I don't need to think about how I'm feeling. I remember in the days when I'm like, I don't even know how to process that. What do you mean process my feelings? I just go, you know? So I would say that if things aren't working in your business, the go-to is to say, "Ooh, I haven't found the right strategy. I haven't found the strategy that works for me." But here's the deal. Every strategy works, but it's only going to work to the extent that our mind is thinking right. Now, I know that sounds very simplistic, and when I used to hear this, I hated it. I will tell you, I resisted it. And so I will tell your listeners, anything that you're avoiding in your business or anything that you are running from or resisting, I will tell you that that is where your next level breakthrough will happen when you go there. So really, there's so much I could say about mindset. And you mentioned before we hit the go button here, but I have my faith fueled thought model, which is how we examine our thoughts in order to not just respectfully, not just as so many say, where it's like, okay, you don't believe you're smart, or you don't believe you're a savvy CEO. Just keep uttering to yourself, I am a savvy CEO, until you believe it. That's not going to work. We need to really understand what is the belief or the perspective that's driving the thought. And that takes work. And I'm telling you, this is the work I resisted for so long. So it's really just getting your mind right. Because what I find is that, especially for women, like on one hand, we're saying, I'm ready. Let's go, baby. On the other hand, they're like, uh-oh, I can't do that. Somebody might see me. Somebody might be offended. And I'm like, wait a minute, marketing, you want to offend. Not that we want to offend, like hurt people's feelings, but at the same time, we need to say something provocative. We need to say something different. We need to say something in a way that's just you. That's why I love when you pointed out, Steve, that, we each approach team and they're unique in some ways, but they're different. That's why somebody would love your way. And that's why my person loves my way. So the mindset thing is huge. And then as a practical matter, just as I said, I will dive into messaging for just a moment. And that is, and I don't know if this is a problem for men as much for women, so I'd love to hear what you say about this. But when I ask a woman, why you? Why should someone hire you when there are X number of other, experts like you? And they're like, I don't know. I'm not the best. Judy, I can't say I'm the best. Wait a minute. If you don't think you're the best, how can anybody else think you're the best? Right. And so the best, meaning, like for me, nobody else has 30 years of real world business experience like me from all these different angles. And nobody, la la la. And I did the power thinking, as I call it, to identify, why me? Why does bringing in my past, even as a secretary and as a lawyer and as a retail worker and all these things, why is that important to the work that I do? We need to find what I call the corner of the market where you own it. So those two big things right now. So search your brain, do the work you will not want to do, set your timer for 10 or 15 minutes. Why am I different? Why am I better? And the other part to that is, how is my approach different? Like, what does conventional wisdom, quote unquote, and their influencers in my space, what are they saying, which I think is garbage? Those things we lean on as we're thinking right, and whoa, it's just it blows the ceiling off of your impact and your revenue.
I love that. I love it because it resonates massively with me, and for a number of reasons. A, because I am self-deprecating. Can't say the word, but I know what it means. And so I'm always told that I should be putting myself out there more in terms of like what I do, because the results that my clients get, all the rest of it. But I don't know. But the on the other side is the is the work you're saying about understanding that your uniqueness in the world, like what is your superpower basically? That's the way that I like to talk about it. And I did a lot of work on this last year, which is why it really resonates in that, like, the challenges that you've had, the experience you've had, everything you just said, like, that is what makes you unique and also puts you in a pool of one. There's only one, Judy Weber in the world that knows what you do, that been through what you've been through, exactly what you just said. And if you can then articulate that exactly what you just said, articulate in a way that then will resonate. You don't have to try to, it just will resonate with some people.
Mhm.
And those are the people that we want to work with, because if they get you for you being you, then work becomes easy, because all you have to do is show up. And rather than trying to fake it, like they say, oh, fake it till you make it and all that nonsense, that, like, influence and everything, like, trying to emulate somebody. Like if I tried to emulate, I don't know, pick someone, Russell Brunson or someone like that, try to emulate him and be Russell and do the way he does it exactly. And I've been on his coaching program, so I know exactly what he does, and so if I try to do it his way, it's all forced. It's all basically fake. Whereas I did a course last year, which sounds, I think it's similar to by the sounds of the way you teach, and it was very much about we spent weeks just going through our past internally and thinking about, like, what makes us think the way we do, like the Joe Dispenza sort of methodology about actually reprogramming your conditioning to allow you to then act and therefore experience life differently. I mean, that's the kind of fundamental stuff, and whether you do it through faith, through your avenue of faith work, or through meditation, through a different avenue, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. It's like understanding that fundamental, that the way you react to things is so out of your control that unless you realize that and then put things in place to change the way you react, then life's really difficult and business is really difficult. And so it's that combination of fitting all that together. And I think you articulated that a lot better than I do.
No, no, no. That was great. Can I speak to just two quick things that I
Please.
love you said? Okay. The first thing is another major mistake that I see out there, and not just at the early stage, but those looking to scale too, is really defining your best client and knowing her in your brain, knowing him, her, or whoever they are, whoever you serve, knowing them so well and having the guts to say, this is it. This is who I'm going to speak to in my marketing. Very specifically, what's happening on a Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. for them, and talk about that in a way that they draw in. Another thing, like personally, we have to be intentional and strategic, and authentic in sharing our personal side. I was beat up by my first husband. Now, that I love talking about that only because there was a time when I was ashamed of it. And then I grew up and realized, wait a minute, I didn't ask to be beat. And I know there's so many other women, smart women, who you'd never think went through that. And when they hear that, they're like, oh, she has gone through stuff. So we need to, like, share that and really speak to our best client. And the other thing I just want to quickly mention, alter ego and this imposter syndrome. I heard someone that I really respect recently talk about alter ego. Hey, when I'm, presenting, or when I'm on a stage, I am like Beyonce, am like thinking I am, and she called herself a different name. And you can see I have fake hair today and la la la. And I just thought, what in the world? Okay. That's the imposter syndrome. Let's be really who we are. As I say, warts and all. Okay. I'm imperfect. And I do use an IG filter because I'm old. But anyway, I refuse to not be who I am. I'm smart, but I'm goofy. I'm very strategic, but I like to have fun. So when we really show our true selves, our best client, the ones that the Lord has already set apart for us, boy, oh boy, they're going to love that. They're going to love seeing you be real. And that, again, will help you to blow up your business in a good way.
Amen to that. Fantastic. Cool. So thank you so much, Judy. I'm going to have to wrap things up, unfortunately, but I could literally chat to you for hours. I'm sure we could have many a long conversation about many different topics. But before we do go, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions in a minute as well, signature questions that you might be aware of. If not, don't worry about them. They're easy. But before we do go, like, how can people find out about you? I know you mentioned you have something to offer the listeners as well. So tell us about that. How do they find it, and how do they learn more about what you do and how you can help?
Yes, thank you again, Steve. So I'm on Instagram at Judy Weber Co. at Judy Weber Co. But I want to invite those that want to go deeper and really transform the way they approach their work, the way they think about the work, the actions they take. I periodically throughout the year have a 5-day challenge. It's free. It's called the Make Bold Offers Challenge. It'll transform the way you create offers, the way you market them, sell them, and deliver them. So judyweber.co/make bold offers. My next one is coming up in a couple of months, but depending on when you're watching it, it could be tomorrow. So I would love to work with you there inside that challenge.
Fantastic. And is that open just to women or men as well?
Um, Respectfully, it is women
That's fine.
only.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Just good to know. That's all. Fantastic. Judy, this has been awesome. But before you do go, I've got a couple of quick questions for you. I'm a bit of a tech geek, and so I always like to ask my guests, talking about like leaning into who you are. I'm an absolute geek. There you go. I always like to ask my guests, what are your favorite apps or plugins or technical things that you use to make your business or life more fun?
You're gonna love this one. I I have a hate relationship to tech because a lot of times it doesn't work. So I am thankful that I have my team that does all this. They deal with Zapier, they deal with all these things that I don't even know. My own project management, ClickUp, I'm rarely in there. So that's the good thing. But I would say the app that I use on my phone the most is probably Apple Podcasts. I am a podcast binger.
That'll do me. Fantastic. And who else do you think would be a fantastic guest on this podcast?
Oh, oh wow. Gosh, so many. I would say DL Sharon.
Okay. Is it
DL,
something you know?
yes, she has been one of my coaches. She's phenomenal. She has systems. She's got the mindset. She's got it all. DL Sharon, highly recommend.
Yeah, sure. I'll reach out for you for contact. And lastly, the title of this podcast is Systemize Your Success. But what does success mean to you?
Mm. Success is really walking in your calling. Like, when what you're doing is really what you're called to do. How do you know that? Because you light up when you think about working with clients. Like some of the stuff we have to do with marketing, admittedly, there's an aspect of it that you got to do, at least in the beginning, what you're afraid of, what you don't feel like you're good at. But we have to. You're responsible. God gave you something amazing and he wants you to share it with the world. So we really do have to just get over the fear and do it. So yeah, that would be my best.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Judy. I've genuinely enjoyed this and I'm very, very glad you came on the show.
Thanks, Steve, for having me.
Cool.